Testing, testing. Testing, testing.
The sale began. Young girls were there, defenseless in their wretchedness, who stifled sobs of deep despair, revealed their anguish and distress. And mothers stood with streaming eyes and saw their dearest children sold. Unheeded rose their bitter cries, while tyrants bartered them for gold. And women with their love and truth, for these in sable forms may dwell, gazed on the husband of their youth, with anguish none may paint or tell. And men whose sole crime was their hue, the impress of their maker's hand, and frail and shrinking children too, were gathered in that mournful band. Ye who have laid your loved to rest, and wept above their lifeless clay, know not the anguish of that breast, whose loved are rudely torn away. Ye may not know how desolate are bosoms rudely forced to part, and how a dull and heavy weight will press the life drops from the heart. The sale began. Young girls were there. That poem is called The Slave Auction by Frances Ellis Watkins Harper, a former slave. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, welcome to the historic Prince Hall Slavery Remembrance Day program. I am Emmanuel J. Stanley, the Executive Secretary of the Conference of Grand Masters, Prince Hall Masons Incorporated. And it is an honor to stand before you as we gather to reflect on our shared history and to honor the legacy of our ancestors and reaffirm our commitment to justice, equality, and freedom. Today's theme, we are the dream and hope of the enslaved, which reminds us of the progress we've made and the work that still lies ahead. Let's begin our program. Please rise for the national anthem. Please remain standing. And we will recite together, lift every voice and sing. Y'all sounded marvelous. At this time, I will invite the Honorable Michael T. Anderson, the Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Texas, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Remember, as we recite these words, let us remember that our loyalty is not just to a flag, but to the ideals of freedom, justice, and equality for all.
Good morning. Would you please assist me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you to continue to remain standing, as we're going to do one of the most important things that we can do. We're going to call on Most Worshipful Grand Master Paul A. Hibner, the Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania, to give us the invocation for today's event.
Guide me, O thou great Jehovah, pilgrims through this barren land. I am weak, but thou art mighty. Hold us in thy powerful hand. First of all, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this vision. We thank you for these, your people that have come with a purpose. You have said in your word not to forget the old way or the old path. We are asking you now, God, to bless and give us direction, clarity, and respect that is well deserved from our ancestors. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
You can now be seated. With your indulgence and with your patience, I'm going to attempt to do the impossible. Establish protocol. To the Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of to the Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia, the Honorable Glenn N. Ruffin. As I call your name, please just wave. I'm trying to see where you are. Oh, there you are. How you doing? To the President of the Conference of Grand Masters, the Honorable Eugene Anderson, Jr. To the Vice President of the Conference of Grand Masters, the Honorable Jeffrey G. Jones, who also serves as the Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Union Grand Lodge of Florida, Belize, and Central America. To the Honorable Kevin Bell, the Executive Treasurer of the Conference of Grand Masters, who is also a past Grand Master of Michigan. You've heard from and already seen the Honorable Michael T. Anderson, the Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Texas. The Honorable Justin Petty, Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. Again, we'll recognize the Honorable Paul A. Hibner, Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania. The Honorable Victor C. Major, Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of South Carolina. The Honorable Alfred Grady, Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Connecticut. The Honorable Johnny J. Eves, Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Kansas. The Honorable Keelan Hinton, Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of West Virginia. The Honorable Jonathan Hurt, Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Rhode Island. The Honorable Jacob M. Bressman, Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of D.C. The Right Worshipful Jimmy Barnes, Deputy Grand Master for the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of New Jersey. The Right Worshipful William Davison III, Senior Grand Warden of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Maryland. In the audience, I believe we have the Right Worshipful Keith Bryant, the Grand Treasurer of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of New York. We have Sovereign Grand Inspector General Xavier L. Butler, Grand Minister of State for the United Supreme Council of the Southern Jurisdiction. We have Sovereign Grand Inspector General Leonard Hurd, Deputy for the Orient of Pennsylvania for the United Supreme Council Northern Jurisdiction. We also have Sovereign Grand Inspector General James Scott, the Deputy for the Orient of Delaware, who's also representing his Grand Master, the Grand Master of Delaware, Everett Lewis. We're pleased to have in the audience Sister Marcia Mack, the Grand Worthy Matron of Eureka Grand Chapter, Order of the Eastern Star of New York. We also have Sister Juanita Brinkley Hall. She's the Grand Conductress for Myra Grand Chapter, Order of the Eastern Star of Maryland. To all Deputy Grand Masters, past Grand Masters, Grand Senior, Grand Junior, Right Worshipful, Worshipful brothers, sisters, family, and friends, and all of God's children under the sound of my voice. Good morning. Protocol has been established. If you take it upon yourself to repeat this list, you do so at your own risk. Those coming to the podium need only give the greeting of the day and proceed with your dissertation. At this time, we will call upon he who has called upon this gathering, the honorable, the visionary, the legendary, and the progenitor of the Slavery Remembrance Day legislation, the honorable Congressman Al Green. Please give him a rousing round of applause as he comes to the microphone to talk to us about this important legislation.
Thank you. Please, friends, claim your seats. And good afternoon to all. I am honored to be a part of this program. I'm especially honored to be a part of it because I'm a part of this great organization. And our theme that we have chosen is one that I trust you will embrace as we have embraced it. These are the words of Maya Angelou. We are the dream and the hope of the enslaved. We are. Let me speak to you for just a moment about hope. There are many who contend today that hope is not a plan. Hope is not a plan. Well, what do you do when you're kidnapped from your home, placed in the belly of a slave ship, and there's no cavalry to come to save you? What do you do when hope is all you have? When you are brought to a strange land, taken to an auction block, and you're sold to someone you don't know, who doesn't have your best interests at heart, when hope is all you have? What do you do when you find yourself being raped, and it's not against the law to impose this upon you because you're property and hope is all you have? What do you do when you see someone that you love being lynched and it's not against the law and hope is all you have? When your humanity is being taken away from you, when you have found yourself to be a victim of one of the greatest crimes ever committed against humanity, what do you do when hope is all you have? Hope becomes your plan. Hope was the plan of our ancestors. We are the scions, the descendants of people who were brought to this country some 400 years ago, when hope was the only thing that they had, and hope was their plan. But I want you to know that that hope, that plan, was impregnated with a dream. and the dream that they had, the dream that the people who constructed this Capitol, their hands were involved in the creation of the Capitol, not every building, but in the main. The dream of the people whose hands planted the seeds, harvested the crops, fed the nation, and made America great for 246 years. That hope was impregnated with this dream. And that dream was that one day, the children of their children's children, one day those children would grow up, and one day those children would come into this very building as free men and women. Hope was a plan that became a dream that has now reached its gestation period. The gestation period for the dream is upon us, dear friends, and it is our duty, our obligation, and our absolute responsibility to do something that we haven't done, but that we must do, should have done it centuries ago, to be quite candid. And that is to recognize those persons whose lives were sacrificed so that we would have the opportunity to grow up in this country and become lawyers and doctors and teachers, to become members of Congress, to become presidents, to become vice presidents, to run for president again. We have a responsibility to them to make sure that their legacy is properly recognized, to make sure that they are respected. Our ancestors have not been respected. We are the scions, that means descendants. We are the scions of the enslaved people who worked for 246 years at no cost and made America the great country it is. So we have a duty to them today and henceforth to do all that we can to make sure that they are properly recognized. And in so doing, we will recognize one who was there, and someone else will say much more about him than I will say at this time, but that is the Honorable Prince Hall. The Honorable Prince Hall. I think that we have a responsibility to get certain pieces of legislation passed that I will talk about later. But for now, let's remember that this responsibility is to recognize them, to honor the suffering that they endured so that we could walk into this building. And in honoring that suffering, we can also recognize the success of those who have moved forward as a result of their suffering. They suffered so that we could have Brown versus the Board of Education and Thurgood Marshall. They suffered so that we could have a Barack Obama to become president of the United States of America. Their suffering has to be honored, but that suffering was not in vain. That suffering has brought about much change. We have to honor the change, but never allow our success to cause us to minimize the suffering. The success we honor, but the suffering we commemorate and can never forget. Let us all commemorate the suffering and honor the success. God bless you, dear brothers and sisters. I thank you.
Always pray for those that have to follow a great orator. But we have one who can handle the task. So at this time, would you please give your attention to the Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia, the Honorable Glenn N. Ruffin.
Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. Good morning to everyone. As has already been said, my name is Glenn Ruffin. I have the privilege of serving as the Most Worshipful Grand Master in and for the jurisdiction of the District of Columbia. I am humbled, both humbled and excited, for being able to welcome you to this great city, our nation's capital. And I hope today will give you a sense of pride for not only the years of suffering, but also for all of the great accomplishments that our ancestors have done in this country for the many years that they did for free. This is the first annual observance of the Slavery Remembrance Day, a day that's derived from August the 20th, 1619, which would be the inauguration of brutal and inhumane practices of slavery in America. The drive to enshrine this occasion was led by the Conference of Grand Masters, various Prince Hall leadership throughout the United States, and our host and visionary, a fellow Prince Hall Freemason, congressional representative from the Lone Star State, my dear friend, Congressman Al Green. Welcome to D.C., and please enjoy the program.
It was Congressman Green who approached the Masonic family about a year ago about this gathering and its important legislation. He spoke very passionately about the role of Prince Hall and who Prince Hall was as a man and a Mason. We felt it appropriate for this gathering to call upon the mother jurisdiction for Prince Hall Freemasonry to speak and to share with us a little about who Prince Hall was. So at this time, I call upon the Honorable Justin A. Petty, the Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. Please hear him.
Protocol having been established, greetings and good morning. Who was Prince Hall? None of us have ever seen Prince Hall, not even a picture of him. None of us ever heard the voice of Prince Hall. Given the choice, could we identify him? Prince Hall was the kind of individual who did not seek notoriety. He did not keep a diary. He did not leave notes or write an autobiography. He just went about his work, doing what he could to advance his people and his fraternity. Prince Hall was a visionary leader, a trailblazer, and a steadfast advocate for the rights of African Americans in a time when such aspirations were met with fierce resistance. Born into slavery in around 1738, he found his way to Boston, Massachusetts, where he would ultimately become a free man and a beacon of hope for many. His journey from bondage to freedom epitomizes the resilience and determination that characterized the African American experience. Let me try to paint a picture of this man with the little information we have. We, Prince Hall Masons, believe that Prince Hall was born sometime in 1738, possibly in September, where some say Africa, others say Barbados. We do not know for sure. Prince Hall married Sarah Ritchie on November 2nd, 1763. She died on February 26, 1779. Both she and Prince Hall are buried at Copp's Hill's burying grounds in the North End of Boston. As we paint this picture of Prince Hall, this is where it begins, with his marriage and death of his wife. The next thing we hear of Prince Hall is when, 1 month after the Boston Massacre, he was given his manumission paper by William Hall. It stated that Prince Hall has lived with us for 21 years and served us well upon all occasions. The paper is very revealing, though, as it stated that Prince Hall is no longer to be reckoned a slave, but has always been accounted as a free man by us. After his manumission, he became a leather dresser and had a business near the old Massachusetts State House. It was there that he met many of the outstanding citizens of Boston and elsewhere. And it was there that he found that many of these men were Masons. We learned from bills of sale, now held by the Massachusetts Historical Society, and other records, that some of those men were John Hancock, Joseph Warren, Jeremy Belknap, and Dr. William Bentley. From 1770 to 1775, we have no records of Prince Hall except an occasional bill for work he had done. He was not able to gain any ground publicly, at least in his quest for equal treatment for blacks in Boston. This should not be a surprise. Who would listen to a lone black voice? How could he get the populace to hear his plea? On March 6, 1775, Prince Hall and 14 other men of color, with the assistance of an Irish military lodge, became Freemasons on Castle William Island in Boston Harbor. And it was at this point that Prince Hall began to make inroads in his desire to create opportunities for blacks. When the military lodge left, they were granted a limited permit to meet as a lodge, perform Masonic rituals, and march on St. John's Day. This lodge, African Lodge No. 1, would later become African Lodge No. 459, working under a charter which we still possess today, and which was granted by the Grand Lodge of England in 1784. And it served as a cornerstone for what we now know as Prince Hall Freemasonry. He was a proponent for the abolition of slavery, which is noted in his several petitions to the Massachusetts State Legislature in 1773, 1774, 1777, and 1778. Prince Hall also petitioned to start the first school for children of color. Here's a historical timeline of events. On July 3rd, 1776, yes, one day before the American Declaration of Independence, African Lodge No. 1 was organized with Prince Hall as the worshipful master. On January 13, 1777, he petitioned the legislature to free all slaves in Massachusetts. On July 3, 1777, he petitioned George Washington to permit blacks to enlist in the Continental Army. On March 2, 1784, Prince Hall, as worshipful master of African Lodge No. 1, petitioned the Grand Lodge of England for a warrant or charter to organize a regular Masonic lodge, with all the rights and privileges thereunto prescribed. On September 29, 1784, the Grand Lodge of England issued a charter to African Lodge No. 459, the first chartered lodge of blacks in America. That charter is securely kept in the archives of the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. On November 26, 1786, he offered Governor Bowdoin the services of the members of African Lodge to keep the peace during Shays' Rebellion. On January 4, 1787, Prince Hall petitioned the legislature to support a return to Africa movement. On February 27, 1787, he petitioned the legislature for the return of some kidnapped black seamen who happened to be Freemasons. On October 17, 1787, he petitioned the legislature for the education of black children. It wasn't until 1803 that Prince Hall was able to get a regular school for black children in Boston, supported by the Brothers of African Lodge and others. The response to the school was so great that it eventually became a Boston public school. From the foregoing, it can be seen that Prince Hall accomplished much of what he set out to do, but he did it from a Masonic platform as master of African Lodge. Many of his contemporaries, such as Absalom Jones and Richard Allen, had portraits made of them, but none of Prince Hall. He was a poor man when he died. His estate totaled $47.22. He did not have a church to support him as Jones and Allen did. He was essentially on his own with a very poor constituency, his brothers in Freemasonry. He spent all of his time and efforts promoting his cause, not himself. As a result, he had to sacrifice his own personal advancement in order to advance the cause of Freemasonry among blacks in America. According to all we have been able to gather, His closest associates were Dr. William Bentley, Jeremy Belknap, Andrew Crosswell, and John Morant. Each of these individuals were ministers of the gospel. 3 of these friends were Harvard graduates. Although Prince Hall had no formal education, he was evidently on an intellectual equal with his friends. Birds of a feather flock together. Prince Hall's writings were that of a learned man. We know why without a formal education. Now we know why without a formal education. Prince Hall surrounded himself with those possessing intellect and education. We now have some idea about who Prince Hall was, but if we were to identify him, we must know what he looked like. We can find only one description of the physical appearance of Prince Hall, and that was given by someone who knew him well, the Reverend Dr. William Bentley of Salem, Massachusetts. Dr. Bentley was not only a minister, but the author of many books, a newspaper journalist, and a popular speaker. More importantly, he was a Masonic scholar. In Prince Hall, Life and Legacy by Dr. Charles Wesley, Bentley relates the story of Prince Hall being the chief cook of a turtle feast given in Salem, Massachusetts. Yes, Prince Hall was also a well-known caterer. He described Prince Hall as a master of African Lodge and a person of great influence among his color in Greater Boston. In perusing the book, we find this description of Prince Hall by Bentley: a tall, lean Negro of great dignity. He always carried himself with the air of one who ruled many. Some theorize that he was of royal African blood, descended from some kingly ancestor. At this point, it is hoped that we can identify Prince Hall both intellectually and physically, and this insight will go a long way toward the full understanding of Prince Hall, the man, the Mason, and the founding father of this day. I would like to close with a quote from a charge that Prince Hall gave at Menominee, which is now the city of Cambridge, Massachusetts, in 1797. Live and act as Masons, that you may die as Masons. Let those despisers see, although many of us cannot read, yet by our searches and researchers into men and things, we have supplied that defect. And if they will let us call ourselves a chartered lodge of just and lawful Masons, be always ready to give an answer to those that ask you a question. Give the right hand of affection and fellowship to those it justly belongs. Let their color and complexions be what it will. Let their nation be what it may. For they are your brethren, and it is your indispensable duty so to do. So mote it be.
And so it is that we have been given the purpose for our gathering today, received a warm welcome from the Grand Master and this outstanding history of our progenitor, the Honorable Prince Hall. I know it was a little longer than what you probably expected, but if you were like me, you learned something new with what the Grand Master brought forward from Massachusetts. So let's give him another round of applause. The conference is led by 2 outstanding individuals. Having received our purpose and learned of Prince Hall, we're going to begin to put the packaging on this beautiful present, which is this Prince Hall Slavery Day program. The Congressman has put together a proclamation which will be read on the floor of the United States Congress. I think it's important that you hear it so that you can know and understand and appreciate the language that's in it and understand that it's talking about you. So please give your undivided attention at this time to the Grand Master of the most worshipful Union Grand Lodge of Florida, Belize, and Central America, the Honorable Jeffrey G. Jones, who's also the Vice President of the Conference of Grand Masters.
Good morning. I have the esteemed honor and privilege of presenting a proclamation commemorating the historic Prince Hall Slavery Remembrance Day program. Our theme, we are the dream and hope of the enslaved. Here in the United States Capitol, Washington, D.C., August 10th, 2024. Declaration of Facts. Declared, August 20th annually marks the observance of Slavery Remembrance Day, dedicated to the memory of those who suffered under the transatlantic slave trade and to acknowledge the enduring impact of slavery on our nation. Declared, August 20th serves as a solemn reminder of the historical injustices of slavery and its lasting effects on the social, economic, and cultural fabric of the United States, and aims to foster reflection, dialogue, and education to promote healing and reconciliation. Declared, the United States Congress, in recognizing the significance of Slavery Remembrance Day, resolved that it supports the designation of a Slavery Remembrance Day to serve as a reminder of the evils of slavery, condemns slavery and its evil progenies, and encourages all to acknowledge the importance of slavery remembrance. Declared, the Conference of Grand Masters, Prince Hall Masons Incorporated, under the leadership of President Eugene Anderson Jr., Vice President Jeffrey G. Jones, Executive Secretary Emmanuel Stanley, and Executive Treasurer Kevin L. Bell, alongside the Sovereign Grand Commander, Southern Jurisdiction, Dr. Corey D. Hawkins, Sr., and Sovereign Grand Commander, Northern Jurisdiction, Dr. Melvin J. Bazemore, the host Grand Master Glenn N. Ruffin, and each of the 46 member jurisdictions of the Conference of Grand Masters, Prince Hall Masons Incorporated, namely, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Alabama, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Alaska, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Alberta, Canada, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Arkansas, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Bahamas, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge California, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Caribbean, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Colorado, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Connecticut, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Cote d'Ivoire, West Africa, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Delaware, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge District of Columbia, Most Worshipful Union Grand Lodge Florida, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Georgia, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Hawaii, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Illinois, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Indiana, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Iowa, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Kansas, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Kentucky, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Liberia, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Maryland, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Massachusetts, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Michigan, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Minnesota, Most Worshipful Stringer Grand Lodge Mississippi, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Missouri, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Nebraska, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge New Jersey, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge New Mexico, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge New York, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Nevada, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge North Carolina, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Ohio, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Oklahoma, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Ontario, Canada, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Oregon, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Pennsylvania, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Rhode Island, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge South Carolina, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Tennessee, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Texas, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Virginia, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Washington, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge West Virginia, and Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Wisconsin, has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to principles of equality, justice, and human dignity. Declared, the collaboration between Conference of Grand Masters, Prince Hall Masons Incorporated, the United Supreme Council's Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Southern and Northern jurisdictions, Prince Hall affiliation, and Texas Prince Hall Masons, and the progenitor of Slavery Remembrance Day, Congressman Al Green, in organizing the historic Prince Hall Slavery Remembrance Day program, underscores the importance of partnership in addressing historical wrongs and fostering communal unity. Proclamations of commemoration proclaimed that the United States House of Representatives, having recognized August 20th as Slavery Remembrance Day, we, the Conference of Grand Masters Prince Hall Masons Incorporated, the United Supreme Council's ancient and accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Southern and Northern Jurisdictions Prince Hall affiliation, and the progenitor, Congressman Al Green, hereby commemorate the historic Prince Hall Slavery Remembrance Day on this day, August 10th, 2024, and reaffirm our dedication to commemorating the memory of those who suffered under slavery by educating future generations, as well as promoting social justice and equity. Faithfully proclaim that this be entered into the congressional record, the archives of the Conference of Grand Masters Prince Hall Masons Incorporated, the United Supreme Council Southern Jurisdiction PHA, and the United Supreme Council Northern Jurisdiction PHA, and each of the 46 member jurisdictions that comprise the Conference of Grand Masters Prince Hall Masons Incorporated, as a testament to the enduring significance of Slavery Remembrance Day, and as a pledge to continue Slavery Remembrance Day programs annually on or near August 20th in pursuit of truth, reconciliation, and equality for all. Signed, the Honorable Al Green, Member of Congress, progenitor of August 20th as Slavery Remembrance Day, scion of the enslaved African sacrifice to make America great. Honorary Past Master Ever Ready Lodge number 506, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Free and Accepted Masons of Texas. Sovereign Grand Inspector General, Active Emeritus, United Supreme Council, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall Affiliated, Southern Jurisdiction, United States of America Incorporated. The Honorable Eugene Anderson, Jr., President, Conference of Grand Masters, Prince Hall Masons Incorporated. Most Worshipful Past Grand Master, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Free and Accepted Masons of Indiana, Sovereign Grand Inspector General, Active Emeritus, United Supreme Council, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall Affiliated, Northern Jurisdiction, United States of America Incorporated. The Honorable Jeffrey G. Jones, Vice President, Conference of Grand Masters, Prince Hall Masons Incorporated. Most Worshipful Grand Master, Most Worshipful Union Grand Lodge of Florida, Free and Accepted Masons of Florida, Belize, Central America, Prince Hall Affiliated. Sovereign Grand Inspector General, Active Emeritus, United Supreme Council, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall Affiliated, Southern Jurisdiction, United States of America Incorporated. Honorable Emmanuel J. Stanley, Executive Secretary, Conference of Grand Masters, Prince Hall Masons Incorporated, Most Worshipful Grand Master, Most Worshipful Past Grand Master, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge Free and Accepted Masons of Maryland. Sovereign Grand Inspector General, Active Emeritus, United Supreme Council, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall Affiliated, Southern Jurisdiction, United States of America Incorporated. Honorable Kevin L. Bell, Executive Treasurer, Conference of Grand Masters, Prince Hall Masons Incorporated, Most Worshipful Past Grand Master, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, Free and Accepted Masons of Michigan. Grand Inspector General, United Supreme Council, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall Affiliated, Northern Jurisdiction, United States of America Incorporated. The Honorable Glenn Ruffin, Most Worshipful Grand Master, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, Free and Accepted Masons, District of Columbia, Sovereign Grand Inspector General, Active Emeritus. United Supreme Council, Ancient Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall Affiliated, Southern Jurisdiction, United States of America Incorporated. The Honorable Dr. Melvin J. Bazemore, 33rd degree active, past master, Geometry Lodge number 49, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, Free and Accepted Masons of Michigan, Sovereign Grand Commander, United Supreme Council, Ancient Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall Affiliated, Northern Jurisdiction, United States of America Incorporated. And the Honorable Dr. Corey D. Hawkins, Sr., Esquire, 33rd degree active, Most Worshipful Grand Master, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, Free and Accepted Masons of Alabama, Sovereign Grand Commander, United Supreme Council, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall Affiliated, Southern Jurisdiction, United States of America Incorporated.
Now, we can do better than that. Let's give them another round of applause. call him Jeff. He did a yeoman's task with that. Now, the congressman has to repeat all that on the floor of the Congress, all by himself. So we look forward to that legislation, to that proclamation being read and getting a copy of the congressional record once it's done. We can all be proud of that. For me, I got emotional. We heard it earlier at the breakfast. As I reflected upon each word, I just thought about the significance of what is happening today, the legislation that the congressman has put forward, the fact that we are all here in this building when there was a time when we would not be. If you haven't reflected upon that moment, it may hit you later on, but just think about that. Just think about that. To appropriately follow the Vice President, we will now call upon the President of the Conference of Grandmasters, Prince Hall Masons Incorporated, the Honorable Eugene Anderson, Jr. He will give us some thoughts on the significance of Prince Hall Freemasonry in the history of this country. Please give him your attention.
Please be seated. Knowledge makes a person unfit to be a slave. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, distinguished guests, and the Honorable Congressman Al Green. Good afternoon. It is truly an honor to stand here before you today on this momentous occasion as we commemorate Slavery Remembrance Day. We gather here not only to reflect upon the grim legacy of slavery, but also to celebrate the enduring spirit of those who fought tirelessly for our freedom, justice, and equality. As elegantly stated by Most Worshipful Grand Master Justin Petty of Massachusetts, our legacy began with the luminary brother, Prince Hall, a man whose legacy continues to illuminate the path toward a more just and equitable society. Prince Hall Freemasonry has played a pivotal role in the fabric of American history. It is more than a fraternal organization. It is a sanctuary, a platform for advocacy, education, and community building. During a time when African Americans were systemically denied basic human rights, Prince Hall Freemasonry provided a space for Black men who could gather, support one another, and work towards the betterment of their communities. Our lodges were often used as churches and schools, as well as stops for the Underground Railroad, aiding those fleeing the chains of slavery in their quest for freedom. Prince Hall himself was an ardent abolitionist. He petitioned the Massachusetts legislature to end the slave trade and to provide education for Black children. His eloquence and relentless advocacy laid the groundwork for subsequent generations of African American leaders and activists. The values he championed, such as justice, equality, and brotherhood, resonate deeply within the principles of Freemasonry and continue to inspire our actions today. As we gather here in the halls of the U.S. Congress, it is fitting to recognize the profound impact that Prince Hall Freemasonry has had on our nation. From the civil rights movement to the ongoing struggle of racial equity, Prince Hall Masons have been at the forefront, embodying the ideals of our founder. Our contributions are woven into the very fabric of American society, from education and social injustice to civic leadership and community service. Furthermore, Prince Hall Masons have valiantly served in every war since this nation's inception, demonstrating unwavering patriotism and dedication to the cause of freedom and justice. At this time, I would ask that all veterans please stand so we can give you a round of applause. Thank you. Today, I'm also proud to announce that Congressman Al Green has submitted a resolution to have a stamp issued in honor of Prince Hall. Additionally, he has put forth resolutions for Prince Hall to receive both the Congressional Gold Medal and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. These recognitions are a testament to Prince Hall's enduring legacy and the profound impact he has had on our nation. As we can celebrate one another, let's all please stand and celebrate Congressman Al Green. Thank you. I promise I won't ask you to get up again. Throughout history, many prominent Prince Hall Masons have stood out for their contributions to the abolitionist movement, civil rights, and politics. You know the names, but you may not know them as being Prince Hall Masons. Notable among them are Thurgood Marshall, the first African-American Supreme Court Justice and a key figure in the civil rights movement. John Lewis, a long-standing member of Congress whose lifelong commitment to justice and equality inspired generations. A. Philip Randolph, a labor leader and civil rights activist who organized the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. Booker T. Washington, an influential educator and advisor to presidents. Kaiisi Mfume, former NAACP president and current U.S. Congressman. James Clyburn, a powerful voice in Congress and civil rights advocate. Medgar Evers, whose bravery in the face of danger helped fuel the civil rights movement. Benjamin Crump, prominent civil rights attorney, and of course, our very own Congressman Al Green, a relentless advocate for social justice and equality. Additionally, we must recognize the remarkable contributions of prominent Prince Hall Eastern Stars, our sisters, the female counterparts to Prince Hall Masons. These extraordinary women have also been instrumental in shaping our history and advancing our causes. Rosa Parks, whose courageous stand against racial segregation ignited the Montgomery bus boycott. Maxine Waters, Congresswoman and a steadfast advocate for social justice and economic equality in Congress. Dr. Fannie Hagan Emanuel, a pioneering physician and community leader. And Adrienne Jones, the first African American and first woman to serve as Speaker of the Maryland House of Delegates. While we must never forget the atrocities of slavery, we must also celebrate the triumphs of those who rose above it. Prince Hall's legacy is a testament to the power of perseverance and the enduring human spirit. His life's work reminds us that while our history may be marred by pain and injustice, it is also rich with stories of courage, resilience, and unwavering hope. Let all their actions, along with many others, continue to motivate each of us. Let that motivation carry you to the polls on November the 5th as you exercise your right to vote. God bless each and every one of you. God bless your families. And God bless this great nation. Thank you.
president is a modest man. That was an outstanding speech, sir, and thank you for the shout out to Maryland. We appreciate that. Check is in the mail. At this time, we're going to begin our closing remarks. I'm going to ask all coming to the podium after this to keep your remarks to 2 minutes or less. And we will start with the host Grand Master, the Honorable Glenn N. Ruffin. And if you would, sir, would you please also call upon your counterpart from D.C. if he has any comments as well.
What an incredible morning we have had, and what a wonderful program that we've been a part of. I want everybody to take a look around. Look around at the people that are sitting in front of you and back of you, to your left and your right. Because when the rolls are called, each and every one in this room today, name will be known for being here and present at the first annual program for the Slavery Remembrance Program. I think that's very important to note. Let me call for just a few minutes for brief remarks. The Most Worshipful Grand Master Jacob Bressman from the Grand Lodge of D.C.
My dear brothers and sisters, good morning, good afternoon. I'm not too sure what time of day it is, but it's truly a pleasure to be here with you all. And Congressman Green, thank you so much for having us with you. On behalf of the Masons of the Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia, Most Worshipful Brother Ruffin's counterpart, I just wanted to say what an honor and a privilege it is to be able to be here to support this important endeavor. We stand with you. For Freemasonry to truly be universal, it's important that we continue to work together. And so I thank you for the opportunity and hope that this good work will not live and die with us, but that we'll be able to continue it for many more years to come. Thank you all so very much.
I believe it's critical for us to always tell the story of slavery and its horrific legacy far, wide, and uncensored, so that we never repeat this dark chapter in our global history. Next month, our jurisdiction will celebrate the 174th celebration of Prince Hall Americanism Day, where we recognize our organization, the folks in our organization like Prince Hall, who wanted Africans in America to play a significant role in the leadership of our country, and we have. As I stand in this beautiful edifice talking about remembering enslaved brothers and sisters, the irony of our role is that their roles were made weak so that our roles could appear strong. Slaves played a critical role in the history of this country, from clearing the land to building this capital city, through bloodshed, tears, and many with death. My first thought when entering this important building today was its statuesque grandeur. We must also remember how many slaves died in its construction from lifting these tremendously heavy stones into their places. Promises made in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution have come together as we celebrate the journey from slave ship to leadership. Our ancestors have been a part of every single thread in this blanket that we are covered by, and the hopes held by enslaved men and women. But even more, we are the only members of this country, the descendants of slaves, that have felt the entire experience of American culture, from a slave to the president. We cannot enjoy the freedom. Thank you. We cannot enjoy the freedom and the dream without thinking about the captivity that we came from. We must be the conscience that reminds America of the debt that it owes, and that we will never again allow the enslavement of another human being for the benefit of another. There's an African symbol called the Sankofa that basically represents the basic thought of respect for history. It is a bird with its head turned backwards while its feet face forward, carrying an egg in its beak. It embodies the idea of looking back into the past in order to gain a better understanding of the present and the future. It speaks to us to remember us. Be we ever reminded that there are warning signs to ensure that we remain focused as not to repeat the past. We must remember to continue the fight even when there's only a few of us. I'd like to thank Congressman Al Green, as many have done before, but in a personal way. I'd like to thank him for his friendship, the leadership that he gives not only to me, but to every African American in this United States. I'd also like to thank him for his mentorship. And today we can thank him because he's got on some pretty Texas regalia. Thank him for his brotherhood as well. I hope that today's program has benefited you as much as it has benefited me, and I hope that you have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
I'm going to deviate slightly, and I'm going to remind these two speakers that 2 minutes or less. The Grand Master can take as much time as he wants. But I'm going to call upon the representative from the Northern Supreme Council, Sovereign Grand Inspector General Leonard Hurd, followed immediately by the representative from the Southern Jurisdiction, Sovereign Grand Inspector General X.L. Butler, to bring greetings and remarks on behalf of their Sovereign Grand Commanders.
Thank you for this opportunity. Our Sovereign Grand Commander, Dr. Melvin J. Bazemore, of the Northern Jurisdiction, Prince Hall affiliated, asked myself and James Scott to be present here today to show his support for what's going on here today. He could not be here. He had other obligations with the Black Caucus, of all people, down in Mississippi. And on behalf of our Sovereign Grand Commander, he's in full support of what has taken place here today. He shared that information during our United Supreme Council session in May, and he sticks by what he said in May, that he will support the efforts of the congressmen and the efforts of all who are taking part in moving this resolution forward through our Congress, and any other support that he and our organization may provide. He and the organization is ready to do that, and we thank you so much for the invitation. God bless.
Protocol having already been established, good afternoon. I'd like to extend to you greetings on behalf of the United Supreme Council, 33rd degree, ancient and accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince Hall affiliation for the Southern Jurisdiction, United States of America, Incorporated, where we have been carrying a Scottish Rite banner since 1886, but currently under the leadership and direction of Dr. Corey D. Hawkins Sr., who serves as our Sovereign Grand Commander. I am X.L. Butler, Sovereign Grand Inspector General, the current Minister of State. And it is indeed a pleasure to be here to represent our organization and our Sovereign Grand Commander, and he sends regrets that he is unable to attend today. However, know it that our organization and members stand ready, and Congressman Green, the 6 moral imperatives that are codified and captured in this document, this is only the beginning. But going forward in the future, you have the full support of all of the members and the organization of the Southern Jurisdiction of the United Supreme Council to see these through fruition as friends and brothers all. And we thank you for your leadership and commitment to this order, and we're standing right with you, sir. And with that being said, thank you so much for the opportunity to address you, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
We have the privilege to have in the audience the Grand Worthy Matron of New York, and I'm going to prevail upon her to speak on behalf of the sisters. I'm going to ask the Junior Grand Warden of Maryland to, as quickly as possible, to escort her. Many of us have to go home to someone. And we don't want to go home to someone that's unhappy because she heard that we didn't let a member of the Order of the Eastern Star speak. Please hear the Grand Worthy Matron of the Empire State, Grand Worthy Matron Marsha Mack.
Good afternoon. Protocol having already been established, I'm so excited to be able to bring you greetings. I am only speaking as the Grand Matron of New York and no other body. On behalf of the state of New York, I am humbled to be here with you, and anything that the state of New York can do during my administration, you have our full support. Again, thank you for all that you're doing to save our history.
Thank you so much for those kind words. Now, we're on a time schedule. Now, I work for many of these men here. Y'all gonna have to forgive us because we cannot call upon everyone. But what I would ask, if you do not live in D.C., Maryland, or Virginia, would you please rise so that we can recognize you and thank you for traveling from far and wide to come to this activity. That includes the Grand Masters. Would ask that you serve as ambassadors, that when we hold this activity again in 2025, that you would please bring someone with you. If each one brings one, this room will be overflowing. The congressman will have to find another place to hold the event, and that is the goal. We heard some important things today. I don't know if it went over your head, but the president said that the congressman is putting forth a resolution to have a stamp for Prince Hall. I didn't hear a lot of clapping about that. I don't think you understand the significance. He's going to speak more on that, but y'all just don't understand. I get it. You know, I know how y'all are. You're privileged now. You're privileged now. You on the other side. So you don't have to remember. You don't have to study your own history. But you ought to. And if you did, you would be almost in tears like I am right now. The congressman is going to be putting forth a measure to get Prince Hall a gold medal, not only the Medal of Freedom, but a congressional gold medal. Now, I don't know if it'll go through, but if you call your congressman, if you write the president, if you help to push this legislation and to move this movement forward, it can happen. And I'm going to tell you what you got to do. You got to stand up. That means stand up. That means you got to do something. The status quo is not enough. You cannot be so comfortable that these measures just go over your head. And if you think it's insignificant, I'm trying to figure out what you're doing here today. Because you should be fired up. You should be motivated. And you should be honored and privileged. And I shouldn't have to tell you that. Go back home and find out why others were not here today. They didn't know, or they just don't care. The president encouraged us to go out and vote on November the 5th. Are you ready?
Yes.
Doesn't matter who you vote for, you just need to vote. Blood was shed for us. There were people that were taken from the shores of Africa that never made it to these shores. That's what this legislation is about. I appreciate you being here. I know I'm preaching to the choir in many cases, but you got to go home and preach to the choir. You got to get on people's nerves. I think we have gotten much too comfortable. Fancy cars and fancy homes. Many people don't even cook at home anymore. They out to eat every night. You're privileged, you're blessed, and that's a good thing. But you still have a duty and a responsibility. At this time, I think we should hear from the author of the legislation. I called him legendary, I called him visionary, and he is all of that and more. He can see things in the future that we haven't seen because we've gotten too comfortable. You should stand to your feet to receive him again as he gives us the closing remarks for this program. I give you again. So you didn't want to speak again. Now I'm being chastised. And that's okay. That's okay. Please hear from the Honorable Al Green. Give him your undivided attention. And when he speaks his words, please pay attention. There should be hand clapping. There should be a yes, sir, go ahead. We with you. We got your back. And then you can go out to his campaign and make a donation. Hear from the Honorable Al Green.
Thank you very much. We're gonna strike that last comment about the campaign from the record. But I do want friends to note that I believe our MC has done an outstanding job. I believe he's done a better job than that. I believe he's done a job that merits a kind of ovation that will let those without these walls know that we're celebrating his being with us within these walls. Give him a big hand, please. Thank you. And I want to thank all of the persons present, but I want to acknowledge these persons because they made it possible as well. I have to honor and acknowledge the Honorable Charles Schumer, Senate Majority Leader. It took his signature to have this program. The Honorable Mitch McConnell, Senator Minority Leader, his signature to have the program. The Honorable Michael Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives, signed off on this program. The Honorable Hakeem Jeffries, Minority Leader, signed off on this program. Give them all a hand, please. I did not mention them, and I have to because the Sovereign Grand Commanders gave their blessings. And it really touched my heart when I knew that they were on board with the program. So if you would, give a special expression of appreciation to Sovereign Grand Commander Hawkins and Sovereign Grand Commander Bazemore. And now, just one person who's not on the program, but he is a person who keeps me informed and makes sure that I pay my dues and do the other things appropriate. That would be my dear brother from Houston, Texas, the Honorable Clarence Douglas. He is a Sovereign Grand Inspector General. Would you give him an expression for me, please? Thank you. Thank you. Friends, you have with you this document. I'm going to go through some things within the document because I hope that you'll take it home and you'll pass it on. We want this to be more than a moment in time. We want it to become a movement for all time. And if it is to become a movement for all time, we have to take the message beyond the time that we've spent in this room. So let me start with this, if I may. What's not in here is the most important thing that we have discussed today, and that's the legislation that we have filed. But it didn't make this booklet, but it will be in the next booklet. So let me start by explaining to you very quickly and in a laconic fashion the 4 pieces of legislation that are important. The first is the bill awarding the Honorable Prince Hall a Congressional Gold Medal. The Congress of the United States awarded Confederate soldiers a Congressional Gold Medal in 1956. We can do in this year, if we choose, to give a Congressional Gold Medal to the Honorable Prince Hall. A bill designating the postal stamp that has been mentioned. Friends, this is huge to have a postal stamp. This will traverse not only your neighborhood, not only your city, not only your state, but these stamps will go all over the globe. And people will know that there was a man named Prince Hall, that he was so honored by this country because of his legacy on the history of fighting against invidious discrimination in the United States of America. The postage stamp is within our reach, within our grasp, but we do have to act. I believe we can get it done. I hope you agree with me. We are also asking that the Honorable Prince Hall be recognized for his achievements, and that we have a resolution designating the Remembrance Day program. I will present such a resolution. We have finally this, a letter to the President, President Joe Biden, a letter to the President asking the President to do for Prince Hall what he can do that was not done when he lived. But let's do it posthumously. Let's give him a Presidential Medal of Freedom. Give him the freedom now that he did not have in life. We ask President Biden to do this. Thank you. I think that President Biden hears your warm, heartfelt applause. Now to some of the things that are contained herein quickly, because time is of the essence. We've talked to you about Slavery Remembrance Day. This is a resolution that passed the House. It is recognized and has been recognized by President Joe Biden. This president did something no other president in the history of this country has done. He recognized Slavery Remembrance Day, and I hope that you will give him an expression of appreciation for having done so. The Honorable Joe Biden and the Honorable Elizabeth Warren, who worked with me to get it passed, and the Honorable Steny Hoyer, who was the leader at that time in the Congress who helped to push it through. Give Steny Hoyer an expression of appreciation, please. Congressman Steny Hoyer. Moving on from the congressional recognition for Slavery Remembrance Day to the Congressional Gold Medal for the enslaved. I've mentioned to you 1956, and I've mentioned to you what I think we can do for them. But there's also a need for us to have a means by which atonement can take place. I believe, and there are others who agree, that we should have a Department of Reconciliation. We need to reconcile our differences in this country, and they go beyond what we have suffered, what our ancestors have suffered. There are others who have suffered as well, and this Department of Reconciliation would be a department just like the Commerce Department, like the Department of Energy, the Department of Labor, with a secretary reporting directly to the president, and his job or her job would be every day to bring forth ideas by which reconciliation can take place. That would be a budget that would be indexed to the Defense Department. Why the Defense Department? Because if we index that budget to the Defense Department, if we attach it to the budget of the Defense Department. It will be funded because we will always fund the Defense Department in this country. Let's fund a Department of Reconciliation. To mention just a couple of things, we need to address the Trail of Tears and what happened to the indigenous Americans. We need to address what happened to those who were interned, who were American citizens, who came to this country, who worked, many of them, to build the railroads. We need to address what happened to Latinos in this country as they were displaced. All of these things would be addressed in a Department of Reconciliation. And friends, we need to do what we're about to do now to commemorate the many people whose lives were sacrificed. I trust that you will take this ceremony back to your community, and I trust that you will allow yourself to be a part of it. You can be the person who will do as I'm about to do, to lead you in going through this ceremony, or you can have young children to handle various aspects of it. Or you can have the children take complete control of it. I think we have to pass this intelligence on to our children. It is important for us in this generation to pass it on to the next generation. The honorable men and women of the Masonic Order have demonstrated that they are committed to helping the future embrace the past that we have for too long denied and neglected. Our ancestors must be respected. This program that we're about to engage in, this Remembrance program, is the means by which it can be accomplished. So please, let's now give our attention as we move forward with this Remembrance program. And what I will do over the next few minutes is recall some of the various well-documented aspects of our experience in America's country, in this country as Americans, but long before we were considered a part of the American citizenry. And at the end of each of these summarized experiences, I will say the words, "we must." And upon my saying the words, "we must," I ask that you, each of you, would in unison say, "always remember." I will say, we must, and you will say, "always remember." Dear friends, to prevent the evils of slavery from being repeated, we must always remember. To commemorate the suffering and the lives lost because of slavery, we must always remember. For the first 20 enslaved Africans who arrived in the British colonies at Point Comfort near what is now Norfolk, Virginia on August 20th of 1619, we must always remember. For the 12 million humans from all walks of life whose lives were stolen from them when they were kidnapped from Africa and forced into slavery, we must always remember. For the Africans forced into slavery by other Africans, we must always remember. For the approximately 2 million human beings who suffered the deadly Middle Passage and did not survive the horrific voyage to America, we must always remember. For the men, women, and children on slave ships, many of whom were kept naked, packed close together, and many shackled and chained, we must always remember. For the enslaved human beings who often worked from sunup to after sundown, 6 to 7 days a week, often without food, we must always remember. For the mothers and fathers who were separated from their children and sold on the auction blocks, we must always remember. For the liberators such as Nat Turner, who fought to free enslaved people, who lost their lives in the fight for freedom and justice, we must always remember. For the tens of thousands of enslaved people who risked their lives in search of freedom on the Underground Railroad, we must always remember. For the liberators such as Harriet Tubman, who escaped slavery and dedicated her life to returning to the South, no less than 13 times, liberating enslaved men, women, and children, we must. For the liberators like John Brown and President Abraham Lincoln and the countless others of all hues who lived and died combating the horrific institution of slavery, we must always remember. To commemorate the centuries of suffering, the years of tears shed, the history of hearts broken, the brutality of blood spilled, and the grieving over lives lost because of slavery. We must
always remember.
Yet, in the spirit of righteous remembrance, imbued with love for our country that hasn't always loved its brothers and sisters of African ancestry, we have to acknowledge that in spite of slavery and despite the invidious offsprings, mass lynchings, convict leasing, black codes, lawful segregation, and institutionalized racism, African Americans have come a laudably long way from our arrival on slave ships to our ascension to judgeships, from our surviving the Middle Passage to thriving among the masses, from shackled in chains to creating societal change, from sitting in the back of the bus to owning bus companies, from having no house to residing in the White House, from painfully picking cotton to proudly picking presidents, from adult males and females being disrespectfully called boy and girl to being respectfully presented as Mr. President and Madam Vice President. The truth be told, dear brothers and sisters, the truth be told, although we have come a long way, we still have a way to go. In closing, let us resolve that we will forge forward, we will commemorate our past and embrace our destiny, always remembering that the hardships people of African heritage have endured in tandem with the victories won in spite of the seemingly invincible challenges emanating from the insidious slavery and its invidious progenies. Dear friends, we must always remember. Through it all, we must always remember. We must always remember. And friends, if you can, we ask you to please have a moment of silent solemnity at 12 noon on August the 20th. Because it was on August the 20th of 1619 that the White Lion docked and the first Africans were introduced into slavery, into the colonies in this country. So if you can, on August the 20th, participate in a moment of silent solemnity at noon, and we shall do this on every August 20th so as to honor our ancestors. And when participating in this moment, please, if you can, place your right hand over your heart with a moment of silence and give thoughts to our economic foundational mothers and fathers, to the millions who toiled and lost their lives under slavery, and lovingly utter the phrase, always remember. So at this time, if you would, while it is not August the 20th, let us engage in this process. If you would and you can, stand with your hand over your heart. We will engage in a moment of silent solemnity, and afterwards we will claim our seats. But in the process, please give some thought and meditation to those whose lives were sacrificed so that we would have these opportunities today, who suffered the injustice and the inhumanity and dignity associated with slavery. Thank you. You may claim your seats.
Let's give it up again for Congressman Al Green. We're almost there, folks. As we prepare to close this program, I want to invite everyone to stick around after the close so that we can get a group photo. The photographers will first take a group photo of those on the stage, and then everyone else will be invited, and we'll take our directions from the photographer. Also, there are copies of President Eugene Anderson's speech available. Sophie has them. Sophie, you in the room? She's in the back. While supplies last, please get some. She's right in the back. Thank you, Sophie. The president will stick around to sign those copies. He loves you that much. At this time, I will call on the Vice President of the conference, the Honorable Jeffrey G. Jones, for his comments. And then I'll ask him to please bring up the President following for his final remarks. And after the President, we will hear from the Honorable Johnny Eves, the Grand Master of Kansas, to give us our closing benediction. Yes, the Honorable Jeffrey G. Jones.
Good afternoon. Protocol having already been established, I still pause to give honor to the one who has allowed us to be here, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. The only thing that stands in the way of our own progress is our complacency. I am honored to be here today. First of all and foremost, to thank Congressman Al Green for this movement. I dare say that for even those in the room, the importance and significance of today may fall a little bit short on us. But we are a resilient people. We took the worst that could be given from the best at what they do. And today we still stand. Most of us know that our organization's humble beginnings began in 1775 when Prince Hall and 14 other black men were initiated into the system of Freemasonry. From that time up until the early 18th century, many of our lodges, most in the North, if you could believe it or not, were formed while slavery still existed. But what is even more miraculous to me is that less than a decade after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, black men who had worked in the fields under the whips and chains of the overseer and the slave master were able to form and found grand lodges within the Confederate States of the South. Many who could not even read and write. But yet and still, these grand lodges and lodges produced men like Thurgood Marshall, James Weldon Johnson, men who showed that there was great resolve in our people. If we can get out of our own way, there is nothing that can hold us back. Congressman Green, thank you so much, sir, for this movement, for dragging us along, kicking and screaming. But I stand here to tell you that after today, I doubt very seriously if you're going to have any problem getting us here to commemorate Slavery Remembrance Day. For if it didn't fall short on us the significance of this day, I dare say that the number here will outnumber those of the Million Man March. May God bless you and keep you is my prayer. If you'd all stand and receive the president of our conference, Eugene Anderson, Jr. Hear ye him.
Please be seated. Please be seated. I promise you I won't be long, but I do want to point out a couple things. The Executive Secretary, Emmanuel Stanley, said 2 minutes, and he got up here and preached for about 25. So I understand, do as I say and not as I do. Yes, sir, my friend. The last 6 words in the Pledge of Allegiance: with liberty and justice for all. With liberty and justice for all. We all know that, right? for all. Frederick Douglass said, "The life of a nation is secure only while the nation is honest, truthful, and virtuous." Our ancestors were challenged with things that we may not be challenged with today, but the chains that were around their ankles and around their wrist have become chains of materialistic lifestyles around our minds. We too have to do better. We cannot let the sacrifices of those go without recognition. If you do not know your history, you are doomed to repeat it. You are doomed to repeat it. So I would ask that we all take heed to Frederick Douglass as we look not just at our nation and at our families or this organization, but as us as individuals. I'm not trying to change the world. I'm just trying to change me. And if each one of us can change ourselves, we have changed the world. God bless each and every one of you.
Let us rise for the benediction.
This announcement for the benediction. 2025, celebrate 25 years.
The mother jurisdiction reminds us that in 2025, we will be celebrating 250 years of Prince Hall Freemasonry. There will be notifications coming out, I'm sure, for us to come to Massachusetts so we can all celebrate together. Most worshipful Eves.
Good afternoon. For this is the day that the Lord has made. Let's rejoice and be glad in it. Let us bow our heads. Most gracious and heavenly Father, we come to you this afternoon just simply thanking you. Thanking you for all the things that you have done for us. Thanking you for all the things that you're going to do for us in the present and in the future. Dear God, we thank you for this gathering of your people. We ask that you bless each and every home that's represented here. We ask that you watch over each and every one of us as we make our way back to our respective homes. We thank you, dear Lord, for everything that you've done for us. These and all other blessings we ask in your Son, Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
Mr. Photographer, we're in your hands, sir. To the front. Program up on y'all. Y'all did well.
Brothers, if we'll all move around to the front.